what's it like to start Melee in 2021? Now, first perspective, you and I both have played Melee growing up as kids. I know that both of us flirted with competitive Melee, like on and off throughout college, but never too seriously. You more so than me. But I would definitely say that the deepest dive into Melee, the most hours I've put competitively behind the sticks was in 2021. Would you say that's the same for yourself or?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was no point where I think I had the tools to practice Melee by myself. I never had a setup. I never had I guess a practice routine, and I guess as I mentioned in the intro, I never had I guess really something to look up to, something to be excited about. So I never watched VODs, I never studied anything. I would just kind of play intuitively, and I wouldn't really learn anything. Like I didn't learn any of like the big tech past naturally like wave dashing and L canceling, because that's like
Yeah.
necessary to play the game. But like and it's honestly not that hard once you get the hang of it.
Yeah.
But I did that, and I did okay considering I didn't try to learn anything else. But this is the time where I've put the most amount of time into the game. How about you?
Yeah, same thing. My secret sort of intro into the competitive Smash world was there was a CRT and a GameCube in my freshman dorm. That was 2014 in college, and people would play, and I was just naturally dogging on people. I was just ripping everybody up. The whole dorm, like people on the floor above me and below me, is like, "You got to play this ginger guy. His Falco's insane." And then, like, I was so cocky, like in like the dining commons, people would be like, "Yo, this guy on the second floor, he'll beat you, Dane." I'm like, "Okay, let's go, dude." And then so eventually, some other guy in my dorm, not on my floor, we like met, like my whole floor and his whole floor. It was like an anime or something. We all
Hmm.
met in their lounge, the second floor lounge. I was on the fourth floor, and I just got absolutely humiliated in front of like everybody. And the dude's like, "Yeah, dude, like I actually play this game like a lot." And I'm like, "Okay, so there's levels, Then
Yeah.
I went to my first tournament, and I just got 0-2. Like I just got dogged on. I was horrible. I was really, 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 really bad. I didn't know how to wave dash. I didn't know, um, any sort of tech beyond the basics. And it was sort of everybody has that moment in Smash where they first realize how bad they are. They're first aware of their incompetence. Um, that like you have two choices. One, it's either motivating for you or it's crushingly demotivating. And for me, it was the latter. I didn't want to play anymore. I was like, yeah, okay, I guess I'm just not good at this game. Whatever, it's fine. And then from there, I started playing Smash 4 online and was able to sort of like ease my way into the scene, grind out some one-on-one matches online and really play against other competitive minded people. And that's what got me into the scene. But Melee was the hook, right? And I feel like now in 2021, I'm finally able to live up to that promise, that potential, that initial passion I had for the game. I'm finally able to realize because Slippy's allowed me to have like an endless amount of 1v1 matches all the time against competent opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of looking at the Melee being kind of this like spark that I think ignited the joys of competitive Smash for both of us. It kind of did it in a weirder way, in the sense of that like Smash 4 and Ultimate were so much more simpler than Melee. It felt very natural to kind of get into and feel like I could play it competitively, because
Mhm.
it was all about neutral, it was all about reads. I
Yeah.
felt like it was a lot more initially um I guess I could initially like get to a good spot without having to put a bunch of, I guess, physical practice time in. And
Yeah, well,
yeah.
like Melee has that intense entry, like that the actual skill floor is very very high because the game's about taking advantage of people who are in hit stun. Generally, it's about like
Yeah.
extending your combos, punish game, all things that you don't just intuitively have. If you pick up a game controller, you can't just pillar somebody as Falco or like wave shine someone as Fox or whatever. Do like a Marth chain grab. That's something you have to practice and then implement and iterate upon where in Ultimate or Smash 4, the things that good players do better than poor players are sort of intuitive. It's like you avoid getting hit by stray hits, you don't like make dumb mistakes and disadvantage. It's sort of things that you could more easily grasp as an entry level competitor, I would say.
Yeah, and as the as the game developed, there was really, really crazy tech that was found in Smash Ultimate. But usually, when those things would be used, it would be like in this last stock, last hit situation where you're trying to clutch out this game and you pull out this really crazy like technique that you've been practicing over and over again to clutch out a game. It's not like something that's like woven into the fabric of the
Yeah.
game itself. It's just more
Yeah.
like this is a cool thing. Of course, there's exceptions to this, and we're heavily generalizing. But
Yeah, we are.
yeah, but I think that's one of the reasons why I got into Ultimate. But now, if we go and fast forward to today, the barrier has been completely broken down. There's mods like Uncle Punch, which allow you to practice shield dropping, your perfect ledge dashes. It allows you to practice like DIing Fox's up throw and smash DIing out of Fox's up throw up air, which is like a guaranteed combo otherwise, and just kills you at 70% no matter what if you don't like DI it properly. And I just spent I just spent a week like practicing all these things and I'm like wait, melee's like super accessible to me now, like and that's the crazy part, is that it was all about accessibility and just like training tools, which is one of the craziest things to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is, okay, so if you're gonna need a competitive Smash Ultimate, you probably need a pro controller or a GameCube controller plus an adapter. And then you need a Switch, obviously. Um, to get into Melee, everybody has some sort of computer, almost everybody, and you need a controller as well, but you don't need that Switch. It's like the barrier to entry is smaller. First of all, Slippy's free. I mean, you're technically supposed to own a copy of Melee to emulate it
Which we
legally,
both
but
do. Yeah.
which we do.
Yeah.
Um, I actually do. Do you? Do
Yeah,
you own it?
I do. I have a disc.
I think they're selling for quite a bit these days. Anyway, my point is, it's pretty easy to get set up. You can look at a YouTube video. You can have Slippy downloaded and start playing instantly. And also the online Slippy, the actual like rollback netcode and the experience of playing with other people is insanely fun. It's seamless. It's easy. You pop into a game like in 2 seconds, and then you probably get your ass kicked for a long time. Now that's an interesting point, AB. I want to talk about the initial resistance that people might face when starting Melee, and this is something that you and I both faced. And again, I talked about when you start playing a competitive game and you get steamrolled, you either are motivated by it or demotivated. And I think most people generally are demotivated if they felt like they had no understanding of why they got beat so bad. Like if the skill gap is so high that like they didn't even have a chance, the outcome of the match is predetermined the moment they got hit for the first time, right? And that is what Melee will feel like for a lot of players. So I don't know, maybe like what are some of your suggestions? Maybe dipping into some of those tools that you were referencing to like get your tech up so you can summit that initial skill floor more quickly.
That's definitely what I do. I think the getting onto the ground floor is actually a lot easier than Ultimate in the sense that a lot of these training mods are all very like because they've just been all completely modded. It just does exactly what you want it to, and you can actually grow in the game, in my opinion, faster than you would in actually Ultimate or Smash Four back in the old days. In my opinion, you can actually like grow to be a good melee player a lot quicker now because of all the tools available to you.
Yeah.
Download a tool called Uncle Punch. In order to get it, you have to go subscribe to their Patreon. Um, I would I would absolutely do it. It's worth the money. It's worth supporting the cause. Also support Project Slippy on Patreon. Both of them are just it's just one guy called Fizzy who wrote all of Slippy, which is absolutely insane. And both of these tools honestly give you everything you need. The the first thing I do is go into Uncle Punch, practice wave dashes. It gives you actually a like tangible feedback on how good every single one of your wave dashes is. Like if you so yeah, a lot of people may not know this, but there's a difference between like wave dashes. Not all wave dashes are the same. You can do what's called a perfect wave dash, which gives you the max distance, and like a non-perfect wave dash doesn't take you very far. The difference is pretty huge. It can be game changing depending on like how well you wave dash. And so
Yeah,
it's
like it
not.
makes certain combos like true and others not, right? Like if you
Yeah.
like if, which is interesting. Like yeah, like so what you're saying is there's tools that do exist. Uncle Bunch being one of them. There's more than that, right? But
Uh,
either way, there's
yeah.
tutorials. There is a lot of stuff that could accelerate your initial learning process. And I
Mhm.
would advise, like, if you're gonna hop into Melee, you definitely need to commit to some solo practice. Now,
Right.
another reason why I think it's actually a great time to start, like, we're still in pandemic, locals aren't really a thing in most places right now. Um, so it's sort of I think it's a better solo game than Ultimate. I will say that because the
Mhm.
actual it's almost like practicing speed running or like the movement of Melee is sort of its own game. And it's this treadmill that you're always like, the best players in the world still have room to grow with optimizing their movement. And that's fun. There's a lot of depth to the movement. And I don't think there's as much depth to the movement in Ultimate, while there still is a great deal. Um, Beyond that, there's no World of Light equivalent, Avi. How's that feel, man? Is it
Feels great. There's adventure mode. Or adventure mode, which is like 10
adventure mode
times
is
better.
better.
Right, wait, so there's one thing I actually wanted to touch on before we jump off this topic, and
Yeah.
which is critical, I think, for starting the game. There's two ways to do it. The one way is jumping into unranked and just getting your ass beat a bunch of times. And the
Yep.
thing is that it'll feel way different than going on like ultimate online, because ultimate online you'll lose. It won't feel as bad. Melee, there's like like a non-zero chance you'll get like JV5'd by some person like
Oh yeah.
on your first game, and it's gonna feel way worse, and you're just gonna feel like you can't even play the game. There's players that I play that make me feel like that I can't even play the game. And
Yeah.
the thing is that there is actually an MMR system. There is a ranking system in unranked, quote
Is
unquote.
there?
There is, yeah. So it's
How come sometimes I'm just a god and sometimes I get four stocked every game? It
it,
feels
it's
like
it's
it must not be super
unseen.
strict.
It's not super strict, and it's like this unseen value that if you lose enough games, you'll start getting matched against people with who've lost generally as many games as you have.
Oh, okay.
You could do that, but what I'd recommend more is actually finding big look for people to play with directly, because you're not going to be able to practice most of the game and implement anything you're actually practicing if you're playing against extremely good people.
Yeah,
You're going you're
that's
going to
fair.
need a practice partner. You're gonna
I
it's hard to get around it. You're gonna need a practice partner.
I did it the old fashioned way. I just lost for like a month straight until I'm at the point now. I think I win a majority of my matches,
Yeah.
but there's still it's such a humbling game. Like you'll match up against someone who's been playing for 10 years, and their name's like Skittle, Might Muncher, and then you just and then he plays Sheik, and you just get chain grabbed. What do I do?
Right, but we've played
Um,
this game before, and we've played a lot of so we did have a lot coming into this. So
we did.
even if you did take like a month getting beat, it's going to be a way different experience. Maybe someone who just decides to dip their toes into it, like after maybe like playing Ultimate for like 6 months. So
Yeah,
we've just acknowledging the spectrum of where people are going to start in. If you're starting way like at the almost ground zero, you have like you've played a bit of Ultimate competitive, you kind of get it. uh, it is much more likely that you're going to need someone to kind of like help you like to like bring you up with like direct play instead of going to matchmaking.
I think that's a very valid opinion. Another thing, weirdly, is that there's only a few matchups. Like so,
Yeah.
yeah, occasionally you'll match against someone who's playing like Bowser or something, but most times you play Melee, you're up against like one of the top 7, 8 characters in the game: the Mars, the Foxes, the Falcons, the Falcos, the Sheiks. It's a lot of the same stuff, and it's interesting coming from Ultimate or coming from any other sort of fighting game or really any other competitive game where you really you see a lot of variance in the characters or weapons that you're being matched up against, but the variance comes instead, or not in the characters that you play against, but in the play styles of the people you're playing against. Like I'll play one, you know, Marth who is amazing at chain grabs and just doesn't let me touch the floor, and then other Mars who are like edge guard monsters, and every single person you play against feels very distinct. And that's been a really fun experience where I feel like on Ultimate you have a lot of variety in the matchups that you play, but it doesn't feel as personal. There's something about Melee where you really feel like you know the guy after you play against him.
I feel like this is like the new boomer opinion, like in some ways. Like it's like yeah, melee is just good old fashioned. You know, you got it's like you really get to know the ultimate. There's too much. It's too shiny. Like it's
No, no,
you know,
no, no.
there's it's all the same homogenous. Like
No. No, I think having different characters is a strength of Ultimate. It isn't
yeah.
necessarily it's just it isn't better or worse,
You're
it's
right
just
though.
different.
Let me just get this out of the way. You're right. Like I can like very palpably feel the difference between like different Fox and Falcos because that's the only two characters I really fight against.
Uh,
But but and but and I don't mind it. I love fighting Fox and Falco over and over again. It's
yeah.
intoxicating. It's crazy that I love fighting the same the same two
Yeah.
characters over and over again.
It really is, and it's strange that I feel like I like all of the matchups in Melee, that's one strength. In an Ultimate, I like 70% of the matchups. Like, one thing that Sakurai at his old age just decided is like, "Hey, let's make some characters that just are annoying." You know, like he invented Olimar and, like, King DDD, and it was like, "Yep, that's a good that makes the game better."
Yep,
I
he
think that
invented them.
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
You
I
know what
know,
I
and
mean.
I know what you mean.
And okay, now I'm just now it's just coming across I'm complaining about Ultimate. My point is that there's a purity to it. I think that in Ultimate and in Smash Four and Brawl to a lesser extent, respectively, um, you know, you trade variety for purity, and it's like the what's the sweet spot? You have the classic example of like Street Fighter One, where it was just Ryu versus Ken, and they were clones of each other, right? And then all the way to now, where there's like 30, 40 characters in Street Fighter. And so, what's a better game? Like, obviously, having more like one character, it's the most competitive possible. When you have 40 characters, it's not going to be as competitive. Different characters are going to be strong, weak, whatever. There's going to be a tier list. There's a sweet spot between the two. I think having 100 characters and having one character are two ends of the spectrum. I think Melee might have found the sweet spot. Like having 8 to 10 really viable characters that are pretty similar in the way that they behave. Like I think Melee might be the most like pound for pound best roster in a competitive game. I think
And
that's what I've discovered this year.
and that's with like only a third of the characters being playable.
Mhm.
Although I would posit that Rivals of Aether
Yeah,
is the most pound for pound like best like in terms of like best character development and every character being like viable. Rivals of Aether I think wins like hands down.
I
But
agree, but it's also it's a simpler game too.
it
It's a
was
bit
developed for
simpler.
that though.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
Dan
But there's
Farnese was like literally just like I'm going to create melee, except I'm going to take out all the bad characters, make every
yeah,
character good, and they just
yeah.
make a bunch of like a few awesome, solid, unique characters.
But when that game launched, it had like what, like 8 to 10 characters, right? Like that's I think that's the formula. Like having like
Yeah,
10 characters in your fighting game is that's the sweet. If you're for all my devs out there, that's what I've learned, and it's been really fun to sort of I don't know learn a game with where the matchups it's a kind of a narrow view.